Wednesday week.
I just love the drama.
Biggest U-turn since winter fuel allowance. Cut that. Because loose lips sink ships.
And what the fans want is to stop teams being owned by madmen.
The sticky patch came when the rest of the team's sticky patch came, which was sort of January onwards.
Grumble, hoops joke, hot wings.
He should be stood outside Hillsborough, stocks having rotten fruit thrown at him.
Sheffield is a place like no other.
Although on the far post, it's cut back instead for Smith. Oh, a sensational goal!
For Wednesday week!
Put on your podcast!
Hello and welcome to the first Hello from the Other Side of the 25-26 season. This is the Wednesday Week's preview show where each week we get to speak to fans, supporters of our upcoming opposition to see what we can expect ahead of that fixture. We're kicking off this season's preview content by talking to Brad from Leicester Till I Die podcast ahead of what most believe is going to be the safest bet for a home victory all weekend as we travel to the King Power to take on Leicester City. Now, before we go any further, I've got breaking news. We've retired Adele. So long-standing listeners of Sheffield Wednesday and the Wednesday Week podcast, we've retired Adele, and this is now... And I'm not sure how to feel about it. So I'm sure we'll get some feedback in terms of that updated theme song. Brad, mate, how's it going?
Let's go brilliant now. I've heard that rendition. I love that. That's a solid 9 out of 10 from me. I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm glad to be on. It's we've had a fun 40 odd minutes talking over on our channel, so it's good to come and do the favour. I've missed you, man. I've missed you. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been at least 3 minutes since we last spoke. And for those that are listening to both of our preview shows, just to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit, I've just been subjected to an hour of torture by explaining to somebody who doesn't know what's happening at Sheffield Wednesday, actually what's happening at Sheffield Wednesday. So I'm going to treat the next sort of 45 minutes or so as a little bit of catharsis to try and get a little bit off my chest and try and forget about the woes that we have at Sheffield Wednesday and see if we can see what's going on at another football club. So we'll talk Leicester. We'll get straight into it. You started last season. I want to sort of get into the start of last season, go back a year or so. You started last season under Steve Cooper, newly promoted into the Premier League with, you know, I'm sure ideologies and sort of viewpoints that you were going to have a successful season. Didn't necessarily pan out that way, did it? You finished with relegation to the Championship, unfortunately, under Ruud and Nistelrooy. Can you give us a rundown of your campaign last season?
Yeah, it started off okay, and then we thought, Wayne Rooney was an ex-footballer at Manchester United, and he's doing really, really, really well in the managerial business. What's that? They've got another Manchester United striker, and he's a manager, and we can bring him in and get rid of an experienced manager. Let's do it. Yeah. And the rest, as they all say, unfortunately, is history. I mean, the name John Rudkin should be a smear in the English dictionary because that guy is an absolute idiot. A lot of Leicester fans will agree with me on that one. And he's not all to blame for everything that's going on, although a lot of people would blame him entirely for what it is. But I don't understand on what genius planet they decided, because when we sacked Cooper, we were 16th and had just lost 2-1 at home to Chelsea. Now, there was the idiocy of what came about that from the players with their banners saying, "We miss you, Enzo," which was disappointing and cringe. Now, look, if the players have had a fallout with the manager and they're not buying into his way of thinking, what you don't do as an owner is come out and say, "Oh, well, he wasn't my choice. I wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy all along." Because first of all, you're a liar. You're a straight up liar because he'd been sit there waiting and begging for the failures to happen at Man United of Ten Hag so he could have a few games in charge. And secondly, even if you're not somehow spectacularly lying and you wanted Ruud all along, why didn't you get him through the door when the opportunity arose to get him through the door? absolutely baffling. And at the end of the day, as well, you look at some of the players he excluded for stupid reasons. A lad who I'm hoping will play more this season, Caleb Akoli. Apparently, he got scolded after a defeat because he didn't like the colour boots he was wearing and it was making him slip over. No, I think the fact that the defence were running backwards and forwards, trying to keep the ball out of the net was keeping them slipping over because their legs were going like jelly. The whole point from that point onwards was completely baffling. And for any Leicester fan that is watching this, and I hope there's a few that have come over, not just from our channel, but in general, have found the way here. There was an infamous season when Martin O'Neill finally moved on to the club. He moved on to manage Celtic, and we kind of had a little bit of what you're having now, not in terms of the financial side, but we had three quarters of our squad left. They didn't want to work under Peter Taylor, Tater Peeler as we call him, right? Because he literally peeled the squad away. Players were left out in the cold that should never have been left out in the cold. Most famously, Steve Walsh, who was a 14-year servant of the club, was tossed aside into the reserves. And the turmoil from that season is infamously one of Leicester's worst seasons. Well, Ruud van Nistelrooy spectacularly tried to do worse than Peter Taylor in about 8 months and pretty much succeeded. It was horrendous to live through that. And if there's any team that can offer you some form of sympathy of watching a team be tragic for about 8 or 9 months, that last season for us was a way of doing it. It was horrible to watch and be a part of. There should never be a point in the Premier League where you feel happy that you've gone down, and that's how it felt by the end.
But so it's safe.
It's
safe to say you're not a fan of Ruud van Nistelrooy, then.
Well, I'm on the fence about it a little bit. I should probably not sit on the fence about it. I infamously am very much against footballers retiring and then instantly getting handed a job. And I'm not trying to say that Leicester are a massive club or anything like that, like some people kind of get on the bandwagon. But in the case of the Premier League and the Championship, respectfully, I think it's very disrespectful that there has been a lot of transition period of managers like Scott Parker, whose coat is more expensive than his brain cells, with the whole Fulham job and the Bournemouth job that he did. Lampard, Rooney, the most obvious glaring one, and obviously now Ruud van Nistelrooy. I just don't think it's fair that because they had a good reputation on the football field, that they're getting taken on as managers in what is a pretty sought after job. Well, it doesn't matter if it was Ipswich Town last season or if it was Leicester City or Man City. Being a Premier League manager is the goal for most, in this division. And when there's managers, that have come up through the division who get in the limelight in the Championship, especially, don't get that opportunity. It does make you wonder why bother. Why bother putting him for a job because you're not going to get it. And yeah, I've always been opposed to it. Obviously, I didn't want Ruud to fail. I wanted him to prove me wrong, but in a way, it was kind of like one of them told you moments for a lot of Leicester fans when we hired Ruud van Nistelrooy as the manager.
You've just alluded there. You said previously that Cooper left you at 16th. You just lost to Chelsea 2-1. What was the point when, amongst the fan base, what was the point when you kind of looked at it and when relegation's kind of inevitable now?
Well, I mean, I would say there was a period on Sky Sports about Leicester, and it was when they said that Leicester had appointed Ruud van Nistelrooy as manager that I thought we was going to get relegated. No,
so you're absolutely right.
In all seriousness. Yeah. From the moment that them words left the mouths of the Sky Sports news team, I don't know. It was probably for me It was building up after the first couple of weeks when we went on that horrid run, because we had the little bounce, the freedom bounce of Cooper Ball. You know, we had a win against West Ham. We beat Brighton. I'm gonna say, which fixture was it? It was Newcastle. We played, and we had a period for 3 weeks or 4 weeks where we didn't have Madsen, who sadly in the last 20 minutes or so, it seems that West Ham are now going to keep pushing and have made that a bid for 20 million for him. So you won't have to deal with him on Sunday if all things go well, because I can't imagine he's going to play just to transfer over there next week. It would be pointless for him. And this was the killer blow for Leicester season, really. In everybody's infinite wisdom, when Madsen was injured during a championship season, and also in the cup games, we played Jakub Stolarczyk, who ended up, because of a surgery option, late at the back end of the season when we were all booked down. You know, we were just waiting for it to happen. Stolarczyk then played about 7 or 8 Premier League games. Ironically, kept as many clean sheets as Madsen did, but I'm not saying anything. But during that period earlier in the season, when we were still 16th, 17th, you know, goal difference was keeping us out. We played the likes of Brentford, Wolves, I think, away, at home, and Newcastle. We got battered in all them games, and we didn't pick Stolarczyk. No. We picked Danny Ward. I don't know if you ever saw the meme that went around from Leicester fans of the guy that made a save like he was sitting on the toilet seat. And I say made a save. He didn't actually make a save. It went in the net. He is the most horrendous goalkeeper I've ever seen. Now, we used to have a keeper we called him Spider Calac. It was Calac was the goalkeeper, infamously against Crystal Palace in the 96 playoffs. He was going to get subbed on because it was going to go to penalties, and Crystal Palace players admitted seeing him line up to come on as a sub threw him off. He was without a doubt one of the worst Leicester keepers we ever had. He was Australian, Zolt Calac, Spider Calac, because he was long-armed, but he was fairly useless. Danny Ward made him look like prime Edwin van der Sar in comparison. That's how bad he was. And that period just completely broke us. And then second to that, if you wanted an extra nail in the coffin, we go away to Tottenham Hotspur. We end the worst run we've ever been on in the Premier League for not scoring and winning, and going without a win. And then we instantly concede within 33 seconds in the next game at home away to Everton. That was the game for me that tipped it. If we had any chance of making a revival in January, it went the very next game. So, yeah, they were the 2 biggest pivotal points for me as to why we just absolutely failed to materialise any fight for survival.
So you feel like you've kind of gone down with a win.
Sorry, I had a bit of a meltdown there, didn't I?
No, you're all right, mate. We'll call it catharsis. We'll call it therapy. You've kind of come down. You find yourself at this stage now, relegated. Van Nistelrooy ends up moving on, and a name familiar to Sheffield Wednesday fans is sort of linked to you, and that was Danny Röhl. When you heard those links, I'm not sure how familiar you were with Danny Röhl at the time, what you'd heard, what you understood. How did you feel about those links when Röhl was sort of presented as a potential successor to Van Nistelrooy?
Well, I remembered what he did for you guys in the season previously. You just had that miracle playoff situation that got you back up to the championship as it was. Wasn't too sure as to why. You then went and sacked the guy a few weeks into the season. He comes in and saves you. Realistically, I know you said on our show that that would have been playoff form and finishing in the playoffs had it been that way. And I wouldn't have been bothered about it at all. I think it would have been a good appointment. I'd have been fairly happy with it compared to some of the other names we were being linked with. And his style of football, you saw it within the players. And I hate to say it, I don't like to besmirch any club, but from a Leicester's point of view, you look at our squad in comparison to yours back then, you're thinking, this guy, that guy, what he did with them players at Sheffield Wednesday, given the mentality of the club and where the fan base was probably at mentally, and you were dreading the worst. If he can do that with that caliber of players, what's he going to do with this caliber of players? You know, we're talking Fatawu, we're talking Mavididi, who tore it up the last time he was in this division. Both of them did. You know, all right, we don't have a Vardy. You can have Daka, by the way. We discussed that. You're going to get Daka. Great news for Sheffield Wednesday fans. We're paying his wages. You can have him. And he's 3 championship goals. But no, you know, but we've got Harry Winks. We've got Skip, sadly. We've just lost Wilfred Ndidi to Besiktas, but we've got Will Alves. We've got Jake Evans. We've got Monga. We've got all these other quality players in. It was an idea that the way, if that was what he was going to do, it's going to be a great transition. As it is, Cifuentes comes with that same caliber, that Enzo-esque, with a bit more flair about it, if from what I've seen, especially in the Fiorentina game that we ended up playing the last weekend. I would have been happy and feel we'd have got the same sort of thing from him as you guys got with him. I would have been very happy with the appointment. I'm also just as happy with the appointment we've ended up making as well, considering some of the names we've been linked with.
Yeah. So talk to me about Cifuentes then. From a Wednesday point of view, when we were struggling that first season under Röhl, QPR were on a similar sort of trajectory in terms of their performances. They were always maybe one step ahead of us, and they were the team that we were sort of clawing at. And then they got Cifuentes in, and I think I'm pretty certain it was around that time. And he came in, and we were sort of contesting, and it was Röhl versus Cifuentes a bit in terms of the results. What have you made of him in terms of the style of play? You said he plays with a little bit of flair there. You've said that you're happy with the appointment. How can Wednesday fans expect Leicester to turn up and set up on Sunday when we go down there?
Yeah, I mean, Enzo is like the blueprint for what this guy kind of gives you. As we've become a predominant 4-3-3 style play, or 4-3, 2 wingers and a striker, however you want to, you know, all these fancy names for formation these days. It's a 4-3-3 to its effect, where we'll look to stretch the opposition, move the ball and transition the ball forward quickly, and we still like to spring that trap, if you will, not so much in the counter-attacking way in the 15, you know, in the 15-16 season to win the Premier League, but more in a case of we'll get that ball in midfield, we'll lure you into our half, and then we'll drive forward with Fatawu, with Monga, with El Kanous, assuming he doesn't go anywhere in the next day or two. That's going to be coming at Sheffield Wednesday. So it's a little bit of patient build-up, which we've been used to seeing way back under Brendan Rodgers. And again, it's more the modernist style of football, play it out from the back. Whether you like it or not, that is the modern football. It's a bit like 4-4-2 in the 90s. It's staying around for a while. It seems to be a very common thing. But it seems to have a bit of flair about it. You know, Leicester seem to be a lot better and a lot more comfortable than they were under Cooper, certainly under Ruud. But I mean, a Brian Chimp with one arm could have done better than Ruud. But my point is the attacking prowess seems to be there. There was an air of confidence, to borderline arrogance, I will say, with some of the things I saw through the pre-season, but it was done with a smile. It was done with a bit of, if you believe in it, I believe in it attitude from the manager. I don't know if any of your fans on this channel who subscribers watch cricket at all, but Bazball, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you know cricket at all, but it's like England play with a flair, sensible flair, if you will. You know, they'll only show off if it's sometimes they don't, but you get my point. They're not going to do something for the sake of doing it, But if they can exploit you and sit a defender down and make him look stupid, with the greatest respect, they're going to do it. I mean, there was a goal that Fatawu scored, who, if you don't know much about him, you may have known he got injured and he had his Achilles. I think it was his Achilles. He was out for 9 months, missed the entirety of last season when he got in after he got injured. He got a ball and just absolutely flicked it over the left back's head, sat him down. Good night, see you later, mate. Ran onto it, driven the box, and before the bloke could finish turning around, he was bending one in. You've just got flair players with a smart brain installed in Cifuentes. I mean, I saw some of his videos where they get the manager down, sit down, he goes through the tactic, and you can just see. One complaint we had with Enzo was it seemed to castrate into that defensive, make 500 passes, walk it into the net approach. Cifuentes, as I saw a little bit under QPR and hearing from their fans, it's a mix of how to put a thing on it. It's in between Leeds' Bielsa and Enzo's Leicester. It's not boring and patient all the time, and it's not going to be flair 6 men going forward all the time, but you'll have that middle ground. And I feel like, I'm going to sound arrogant here, but I feel like a strong side is going to struggle to cope with us on our day if everything clicks. Our biggest gap is also what our long-term, future is we do have inexperience in youngsters that are coming through. So that'll be, we'll have to see how they do in games. I'm sure we're going to have bad games. As Cifuentes has always said, he's acknowledged we're not going to, have brilliant season in terms of win every game, go points record. But this is long term. This isn't something that's maybe what Enzo came with originally. The idea was to win it, make himself a name, move on, which is what happened. Cifuentes seems to see the Leicester project and he's all invested for it. So I know what you said about youngsters and not having a lot of first team players. If you allow us to play our game the way Fiorentina did, and I know you've had a very broken pre-season and the fitness levels, I hope for your sake it's not, but it could be ugly on Sunday. It really could. Or you could do what Hull City did. I'll let you remind your fans about Hull City and the Achilles heel that happened to Leicester to give your fans some hope.
Well, I'm going to save that one. I'm going to absolutely save that one for the prediction at the end of the show. Just remind me if we don't mention it, we're going to come on to the Hull City one. One thing I do want to ask you about. Yeah, one thing I do want to ask you about though is around about that period you've come down. Röhl has obviously been associated and linked with the job at Leicester, but then it kind of came out amongst the headlines, and I've got to admit that I'm a little bit of a novice when it comes to this one. There seem to be some alleged charges that were lobbied towards a club and some potential breaches, and people were saying that there may be some sort of sanctions coming Leicester's way. How far on is that situation, if it's anything at all?
The problem is, we're about as in the dark about it as you are. Unfortunately, our owners used to be very open and communicated with fans. Unfortunately, when that tragedy happened with the helicopter incident and his father lost his life along with the others in that accident, it just feels like things became very closed off. There's a lot of things now that later on make a bit more sense that didn't really make sense when they were happening in the here and now. The main thing, our first relegation back down to the Championship, we just got Europa League football. We've just won an FA Cup. Why have we got no money to refresh the squad? Which is pivotal in football in general. You have to refresh the squad. All of a sudden, these things from the dark, you've got money to spend. Actually, you don't. You need to sell people. No, you don't. It wasn't until the first home game of the season against Manchester United, I think, of that season, it came out that we would need to sell players 4 days left, 2 days or whatever it was left of the window. And then he's coming out and being open-aired with us. They've been the issues. It's a difficult question to answer because our owners just haven't been open with us. We could just as easily get a 12-point deduction tomorrow as we could not get one. Because when we went to the Premier League, it looked all for certain. The only thing that gives me a little bit of false hope, and I'll call it false hope because I don't like to get my hopes up in football. When we was in the Premier League, it was very much a talking point. Leicester are going to face a points deduction. There's a good chance it'll be 10 points. It might be this, but it could be as high as this. It was every day, it felt like me and Chris and other Leicester channels were defending the issue, we're answering questions, and we don't have these answers. We're trying to give you as much as we can, but we can't give you any. This one, got to mention, hasn't really had anything said afterwards. My thing about this, and I'm sure Man City fans will love me saying something like this, and I think it goes for any club in this condition. If you cannot buy, and let's excuse the Friday game, the Friday night game that happens in all the divisions, there's always an early game on a Friday night. If you cannot give a club a definitive points deduction punishment by 3 p.m. Saturday, X day, whatever day it is in August, sorry, you've missed the boat. Punish us next season. You know, we forced you to change the wording by getting away with the points deduction we should have got last season because of wording and thing. You've changed the word. Sorry, too late. Season started. Give us -6 points next season, whether we're Premier League or Championship, because that's the worst thing. And like you said, I think it's affected our transfer business. For the first time this season, our owners have actually been honest with the manager and gone, yeah, you're going to have to sell. They've not said, yeah, we've got money. It's just in him, and him that you'll need to make. You know, that's what they did with Ruud. That's what they did with Cooper. At least Cifuentes knows the deal. We haven't made any big signing yet or made any, signings in that aspect. But now it seems that Madson's going to go. It looks like the fees are like we brought in Asmir Begovic, not a brilliant signing, but that suggested that we knew Madsen was not going to be here playing for us this season. It might take a week or two, but let's get him in free through the door so we've got a second choice to Jakob and we can get him prepared to be our number one. I feel like anyone else like Canoes, it's starting to edge close that maybe we'll get him through the door. But in terms of points deduction, whether that affected the Dole situation or not, I wish I had answers for you. Unfortunately, I don't.
So in terms of, I can sort of relate to that with situation at our place and what's going on with us. But in terms of that transfer activity, are you not signing players because you can't, you don't think you can, or they're just not the right players? Could you sign somebody if you wanted to?
I believe we could. I believe if we really wanted to, we could, because how FFP seems to work from my understanding, PSR seems to work from my understanding, is if Leicester know they're going to get 20 million, first of all, there's a lot of deadwood we need to get rid of. It's more our wage structure, I believe, that's causing the crop. Now, we've got rid of Connor Cody. I won't go down that road, otherwise this will be a 4-hour recording if you ask me about Connor Cody, my disdain for him. We've got rid of his wages. Obviously, Vardy has become a free agent. So all that aside, I think if we wanted to do a deal, we could. Could we go out and spend 30 million? No. Could we go and do the potential deals that we're looking at, like a Kone for 3-4 million from Wickham? Could we get Brownhill in on a free without any transfers happening? More than likely. Do we still need to sell it to make sure this problem gets laid to rest and we're not facing PSR next season and the season after? Also, yes.
Yeah.
But I think we're at the top of the pile of problems, ironically. And if we're smart this season and trust our youth and don't necessarily spend for the sake of spending, we could overcome the molehill or the mountain in this case of any future problems.
Okay. What are your expectations as a fan base then this season? Do you see yourself? Is it championship or winning the title or bust? Is it promotion, playoffs? What's the expectation amongst Leicester fans?
I'd like to say we've got a very mentored and mellow expectation as fans. Obviously, every fan base has it has to be this, it has to be top, we have to win it. There was more of a panic and a necessity for it 2 seasons ago when this was all high alert, points deduction, £1 million debt, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Now it's kind of on that, feels like it's on the soft reset side of things. We won the battle. We've won the other one. It seems the one that happened in Christmas. And with everything that happened last season, and the fact that even though we've got rid of a few bits of dead wood, it feels like we still need this season to get through before more dead wood is got rid of. As unfair as that statement is, there's probably some players in there that some Leicester fans do love. I would take playoffs. I would take playoffs regardless of a points deduction. I think if Leicester spent 2-3 seasons in the Championship, it wouldn't be the worst thing. A, you get the full clear out of the deadwood. B, you develop youth players that are happy to boyhood club. We get a Dewsbury Hall 2.0 sort of situation with 1 or 2 of them. You financially come out of it better. You can breathe a sigh of relief. The club financially does a bit better. We learn from our mistakes over the last 5 or 6 seasons. The club ends up being in a better position for me. If we spend 2 or 3 seasons in a Championship, as long as it doesn't go south, I think that could be ideal for us. I think on paper we have the squad to go first, second. And if the points deduction comes in and it's 4-6 points, I still think we have the squad on paper to do it. Yeah. But I would be happy with 6th place come May to be up there.
Okay. So if you're not going to win the league, then who is?
The craziest thing about the Championship, isn't it? You could have a team that finish, 17th one season, going on winning it the next. I'm not following the hype of most people. Most people have got a Wrexham or a Birmingham or an Ipswich on there because of McKenna. I've just got this horrible feeling it's just going to be someone boring and a bit predictable that comes up. I would say Sheffield United and someone like Norwich City go first and second. Ooh. But if I wanted to not be boring for who I think might win the playoffs, I'd go in someone like Millwall, who keeps stinking up 8th place. So surely eventually they're going to crack the code and get in the playoffs and go on and win it somehow. I know it sounds absolutely bizarre, but they've been stinking up that 8th, 9th place position for about 4 seasons. It feels like they're there. It's just, you know how you say make a prediction table, it's pointless because you'll look an idiot. But if you put Millwall in that 8th to 10th bracket, you're going to look pretty smart with them. I can just see someone like that. Someone like a Preston or a Bristol City or a Millwall getting in that playoffs and winning it. But yeah, it's Sheffield United and somebody like Norwich for me. I can just see it being, sadly, I can see it being a bit of a mundane promoted side that goes up if it's not us that take one of them automatic spots.
I like the words mundane and Sheffield United in the same sentence. However, I'm not a massive fan of you telling us that we're going to win the league next season. Okay, last couple of questions before we round things up.
I'm sorry, I have to do it to you.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
where do you see Sheffield Wednesday? Give us a quick overview from an outsider looking in. Where do you see Wednesday's season going? I know that we're perpetually linked with that bottom place. Do you see anything other than 24th? From somebody who's way away from the things that are going on at Hillsborough at the moment, what does it look like for you at the shit show that is Sheffield Wednesday?
Well, a little bit like that, to be honest with you. From the outside looking in, it does look as bad as they make it out to be. Back to you in the studio, sort of thing. Well, that's that. But no, honestly, there is actually. There is, in my eyes, there is a slight chance you might surprise even your own fan base here, because look, your squad has been stripped to the bare bones, and you've not got many players of extreme caliber in this division left hanging around, or if they are, they still might not be hanging around much longer at the club. You know, you mentioned about Barry Bannon might not even be registered for this game. However, when a club hits its darkest moment, and I know you've been down in League One, and people might say that's our darkest moment, but I think in conjunction with everything that's going on right now, this has to be up there with one of, if not your darkest moment. From an outsider, that's how it looks anyway. One of our darkest moments was drawing 0-0 against Stoke City, the last game of the season, and eventually losing our reputation as one of the only 10 teams that have never dropped out the top two divisions in the English Football League. We got relegated to League One. That was dark, you know, and then we had a handful of players that stuck by us that season. We promoted a lot of youth players that season. Richard Sturman was a player that we promoted that season. Yes, we kept hold of terrific goal scorer Matty Fryatt that season, but in reality, we had a lot of developing stars, youngsters, free agents. Okay, and I know people say, "Oh yeah, but you had Steve Howard." Yeah, Steve Howard was also in his mid-30s. You know what I mean? We're not, you know.
Yeah.
You're not talking, you know, Steve Howard in his late 20s. He was at the back end of his career, but we were able to get some names. And I'm not saying we didn't have some big names at that time there, but we had to search high and low for players to come and join us. You know, I believe we had like Max Gradle came from our youth system. You know, we had a lot of players, and yes, the expectation was that Leicester were going to bounce straight back up. But as we've seen, and I know you said you spent 2 seasons there, you've seen Nottingham Forest, you've seen Leeds United, yourselves have experienced it. It's not simple that former Premier League clubs go down to League One and come straight back up. We're one of a very small minority that have managed to bounce straight back up from League One. And to cut a long story short for you, there is a glimmer of hope. If you can get a band of brothers, something that was infamously talked about around Leicester during that pre and post COVID era of football, where we had Ndidi, we had Tillemans, we had Madison, it was like a band of brothers. We were the blueprint for the Premier League. We kind of had to do that from the League One days. That's where that's all started from. We had a band of brothers because we knew that the players that were standing by us through that season were here for the club. They were here for the fans. You know, players that couldn't wait to get out the door were gone within the first whistle of being relegated, you know, that season. And I know it's a bit different for yourself. You know, necessarily players aren't down in tools because they don't want to be around the club and the fan base. It's the ownership and the state of the club. So it's a little bit different in that sense. But the players that are standing by you are willing to put on the jersey. Sorry, that was Americanized of me. Yeah, the shirt, you know, are willing to stand on that pitch and face the wrath of Leicester and whoever else comes this season for you guys. You've got no pressure on you. I think at least for the first 6 weeks, I don't want to play Sheffield Wednesday because you've got nothing to lose. You literally have nothing to lose. Every Tom, Dick, Harry, and that's just the pundits, you know, every fan base, you know, whether it's us, whether it's Millwall, whoever, even if you're not a football fan, you're saying, Sheffield Wednesday, 24th. I think there's hope. I think there's a chance you could finish 20th come the end of the season. There's no reason if this guy, as you said, is the man behind the mask, behind Röhl's success with Wednesday, can do a Craig Shakespeare for you like he did when we sacked Ranieri, why can't you surprise and shake up the odds? Because anything less than survival, it's, well, it was bound to happen, weren't it? And I'm not going to rule you out. I love an underdog story. I support an underdog club. I know we've won things recently, but my club's always been an underdog. Yeah, we were the yo-yo club before West Brom tried to make it cool with playoffs and relegation. So I maybe I'm the only optimistic Sheffield Wednesday fan who's not a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Maybe me Jamie Vardy love is coming through because he's he's your own academy boy. Oh, foolish to let him go. Oh, who would do that? Who would do something like that? I jest, but yeah, I think you've got 6 weeks of the season. If you can get something up and running.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you say that
No,
you say
on,
it in jest. That is typical of Sheffield Wednesday. That sort of stuff is the kind of thing that we do. So, you know,
yeah.
We are where we are with it. Last question then, mate. Having said everything that you've just said, then give me a score prediction for Sunday. Be kind.
I'm going to give you 2 score. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to give you 2 score predictions. One that is more in hope for your fans, because the last time we played a battered and bludgeoned team that had the tea lady on the sub bench and the bus driver was on, he was the medical staff. They were that short of staff and players. Was a Steve Bruce's Hull City. That guy who's got 35 boyhood clubs. That manager. And they had about 10 players that were first team players, and everybody else was injured or whatever. And we were Premier League champions, and we lost that game 2-1. So my prediction is if Wednesday are going to upset the apple cart all around the world, you're going to win that game 1-0, 93rd minute, Barry Bannon. It'll be like a WrestleMania return. You'll think he's not playing, and all of a sudden his music will hit, he'll swing down, he'll come off from the corner, bash one in, and nick the game 1-0. But my hopeful prediction is, and I'm still going to be kind because I am going to give you a goal in this, but I think we will get the win 3-1.
Okay. I've just been
but
on
don't
your
be
channel,
surprised if you walk away with 3 points.
I'm going to be stuck in a little bit more of a sort of a pragmatic situation at the moment. I'm going to be honest with people on our channel and say that I've said that we're probably going to lose about 4-0, and I'm going to get hammered for it. Some people might think I'm being optimistic. Some people might think I'm being pessimistic, depending on which side of the Sheffield Wednesday coin you're at. But I think we are in for a long season. Leicester City on the first day of the season isn't going to define us. We're going to have some tough days ahead, some dark days ahead. I'm hoping that there are some glimmers of hope from a takeover perspective, from a chairman seeing sense and finally selling the club and making us sustainable. First and foremost, I want to be a Sheffield Wednesday fan that's supporting Sheffield Wednesday this time next season, whatever league that's in. And secondly, I just want us to be competitive and turn up with a bit of heart week in, week out. And if we do that, like you've said there, Band of Brothers attitude and mentality, it might be something that we can pull out, and we'll see where we go with it. But it remains to be seen. We'll see where we are. Brad, you've been absolute value both on your channel, your show earlier on tonight, and on the show that we've just recorded. Before we leave, do you want to give your Leicester Till I Die channel a little bit of a plug? Tell us where we can find your sort of content that goes out. What are you all about?
Yeah, so thanks for having us on, first of all. It's been a pleasure to have a laugh and a giggle with you about football, considering both having bad, for contrasting reasons, seasons last year. LTD TV, Chris is the man who runs the channel. He'll give you all the latest news and information about Leicester City. He's currently going live doing a show about the sad news that Manson to West Ham is as Fabrizio Romano would say, here we go. So any transfer news, any club inside information, match previews, as you know, because we've had and by the way, you haven't bragged it on here. You are an award-winning podcast. Just like to point that out for you. Checks in the post, I know. Thank you very much. But, We do previews with opposition fans. We do review shows where I look at it a bit tactically. We have a predictions league. So we do a prediction show. Anything and all things Leicester. If it can crop into Chris's brain to do it, he does it. It goes out on Twitch, on YouTube. We do have a Facebook page. That's mainly for Leicester things. I don't know if you'd want to go on. Why you'd want to go on a Leicester City Facebook page, I don't know. But if you really are that desperate to find more stuff, you can do. But yeah, YouTube is where you'll find us mainly. On X, formerly known as Twitter, and it broadcasts out on Twitch as well. So yeah, that's the best places to find us.
Awesome, Brad. Thank you so much for giving up your evening tonight to have a chat with us about the season opener down at Leicester. For our regulars, you can find our content on all of those channels at the bottom of the screen. We don't brag about being award-winning because Dan Fudge just put it in the credits at the end of the show. For those of us regular listeners, we'll be back on Monday night. Just wait for it, mate. Those of us regular listeners, you'll catch us again on Monday evening, where we will be dissecting the shit show that is the Timeline of Terror at 8 o'clock Monday night. And you will also be able to hear us talk about how things went down at Leicester. Thank you very much, and we will see you later.
Every week, live from 8 p.m. It's the Wednesday week. Bringing you football analysis.
They said we'll win the league next season.
Bringing you banter.
I don't think anybody wants to listen to my boring anecdotes.
Why not? You've been doing it for 4 years on this show.
I should not have said that. I should not have said that.
This show's like you're mental. No, I'm not.
Clip that, clip that, clip that, clip that.
Bringing you terrible impressions.
Wibble, wobble, wobbly, wobble, wibble, wobble, Cyber Jordan. Hey, pay your bills. I don't know where these jokes are coming from.
Available on all social medias.
Obviously, this goes out on YouTube and as well as all the other social media out there for podcasts, etc.
The award-winning Wednesday week. Join us.
Put on your podcast.